Have you ever tried sugarcoating something disgusting that you had to eat or like a medicine that you've had to take? There was a season when I was taking a bunch of supplements and a friend suggested popping those little things open and pouring the insides into a smoothie and just drinking the smoothie. And it was straight up disgusting. So much worse than just having to take all the pills like I was supposed to. Should have just ignored the fuss and just gone for it. And friends, critique is similar. We should not try to sugarcoat it. It just makes it worse. Let's talk about that today. Hello, leaders. Welcome to the Culture Keepers podcast. My name is Kara List, and I am your leadership coach. And here on the podcast, we discuss topics that empower you as a leader to cultivate a thriving and connected workplace culture where your people feel valued, seen, and heard. That is the best way to do it, friends. That's what we're here to talk about. And today we're going to talk about the balance of critique and praise. Last week we talked about praise. Today we're going to talk about critique. And spoiler alert, you should be giving more praise than critique. And in order to do that well, you need to have a regular pattern of giving praise. And one way to do it is in your weekly staff meeting. And of course, we want to give it in a way that is helpful and sincere. And so I have a template for you, the ultimate meeting kickoff, how you can take the very first little chunk of your staff meeting and give praise in a way that is sincere and helpful and boost that connection every single week. So go ahead and grab the ultimate meeting kickoff guide at www.heycaralist.com/kickoff, or just grab it right there in the show notes. So we're diving in today to talk about critique, or you could also think of it as constructive criticism or correction. And we're going to talk about why it's really important not to sugarcoat it. And look, I totally understand why we are tempted to do it, why you might be tempted to sugarcoat critique. It's super uncomfortable. We don't want to discourage our people. We do want to point out the things that they're doing well. But when I go back to my illustration about dumping the supplement innards into the smoothie, it just made it worse. It made the whole thing awful. And it's better to just give it to people straight. And so we're going to dive in to what that looks like. And I want to start by talking about what critique actually is. And I want to use an example. So let's say you are in a parking garage with a friend and you have to back into a tight space, or your friend is driving and they have to back into a tight space. So you jump out of the car and you say, I'll help, right? So I'll stand over here and you will navigate getting into this space. What would be most helpful? I will tell you what is not helpful. What is not helpful is standing there and saying, good job. You are so good at driving. Parking is definitely a strength of yours. That's not what the person needs. In order to get it right and avoid collision, avoid potential disaster, what is helpful is to say, okay, no, stop. You need to move a little bit to the left. Okay, turn it a little harder, right? Or whatever your instructions are, to really show them what it means to get it right. Not just encourage them to get it right, but to show them what they're doing wrong in order for them to get it right. That is helpful, and that is kind. It is unkind to just encourage that driver as they back into another car or into a wall. It's not kind. What's helpful is to show them what they need to do to get it right. And that's the mindset shift that we have to make. We have to decide that critique is helpful. And that changes everything, right? That makes us feel less guilty and bad about doing it, and less guilty and bad about doing it without some vague, fake praise mixed and muddled into it like a disgusting supplement smoothie. So critique, correction, criticism, whatever word you want to use for that, is humble helpfulness. And I added humble because we should go into every conversation we have with our employees thinking, I could be wrong about this. We don't know everything. And so it is crucial that we go into these conversations with the opportunity to learn, that we go in not having predetermined or pre-decided what is fact. So humble helpfulness. That's what we're working on. So, in a little bit, we're going to get into how I recommend you actually give critique. But first, I want to talk about balancing critique and praise. So, in last week's podcast episode, I talked about praise. I specifically talked about how you should stop saying good job because that's vague and it can feel insincere. And instead, you should replace it with painting a picture of what is good by telling them in a clear and specific way what was good about what they did. And this kind of feedback should be regular. You should be giving praise regularly, both privately and publicly. And you should also be giving critique regularly. And this should be the pattern of your communication and your feedback with your people. So, how do you do that? How do you create this balance of critique and praise regularly? You do it immediately. So, often when something happens, whether it's something good or something that needs some critique, we wait. We wait until the next staff meeting. We wait till the next one-on-one meeting. We wait until the opportune times it will hopefully just magically show up. Never does, but we wait. And what happens when we wait is one of two things. We either get so amped up about it, it becomes way bigger than what it is because we're anticipating like a hard conversation, right? We're anticipating something that's coming. So we blow it up in our minds and it causes us anxiety and lack of sleep and we just dread going to work that day. Or the opposite, as time goes on, we start to think, that was last week. Is it really worth bringing it up, right? Like, let's just all move on. We've already all moved on. So instead of waiting for that meeting or for that perfect time, you should be giving feedback immediately by way of praise and critique. So that means when something goes wrong, when someone really messes up or you have an opportunity to give them critique based on their performance, you should do it right away. And that could mean that day, like pulling that person aside. It could be letting them know, hey, I would love to talk to you first thing tomorrow, or whatever it is, calling them on the phone, finding a way to address it quickly. And if you do this with praise, more than you do it with critique, then it is a pattern that people become used to. So you asking to talk to them doesn't feel like they're in trouble, like they're going to the principal's office at school. They know that they can anticipate from you this regular pattern of feedback. And of course, if that ratio is greater with praise, right? More praise than with critique, then these people are going to feel personally cared for, and they're going to be used to a pattern of you challenging them directly. And that makes all of this so much easier. Easier for them, easier for you, easier for the work to keep getting done. So balance encouragement and critique with a regular pattern of feedback that is prompt. I'm sure in your days, years of leadership, you've heard of the feedback sandwich or the critique sandwich, right? Where you decide that you're going to share something positive with the person, then something negative sandwiched in the middle, followed by something positive. We've all been taught this at one point or the other. And I just want to say right now, can we toss the sandwich out the window? It's no good. Let's stop doing that. And here is why. It feels insincere. No, it is insincere. Last week on the podcast episode, again, go back and listen to it. I talked about manipulative insincerity. And that's really what we're doing. It's again, this idea of sugarcoating it. Like, I'm not going to say something that is hard or uncomfortable for me until I say something nice about you because that makes me feel better. And does it make the other person feel better? I don't know that it does. I think if you have something hard to say, first of all, they might know it's coming. If they did something that warrants some critique, they made some mistakes, they're going to know it's coming. And it's like, just get to it, right? Like cut the small talk, like cut the whatever, the fluffy praise that's vague and insincere. And let's just talk about the facts. Like, let's talk about what is actually happening. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. I want to encourage you to get out of this habit of starting with this fluffy, fake praise, creating this disgusting feedback sandwich that no one wants. Okay, cool. So I know what you're thinking. Great. How do we do it? Right? How do we give critique in a way that doesn't crush our people, that doesn't ruin relationships, that doesn't cause extra conflict, but yet is sincere and not manipulative and not fake and not vague? Okay, well, I got a solution for you, okay? I've got this template. And again, I want to say that this little template, this little framework is built upon the idea that you're giving this kind of feedback regularly. So I encourage you to start. I encourage you to just start this week by giving regular praise and regular critique. And you might even say at your staff meeting, hey, I'm just going to work in my leadership skills to be more consistent with my feedback. And it's going to be informal. It's not going to be this formal sit down meeting. It's going to be here and there and a little bit of everywhere. But this is a way I want to grow as a leader, in a way I want to help you grow as employees and as leaders yourselves. So we're building that foundation. And then this is what we're doing. We're going to start with gratitude. And again, not for gratitude's sake. You're not going to say thank you for whatever because I told you to. You actually need to feel gratitude. This is sincerity. Let's continue as leaders to call ourselves to a higher standard of excellence by being truthful, by not saying something we don't mean. So we want to start with genuine, sincere gratitude. And that gratitude could be towards something that they are doing, something they're working on, or just taking the time to meet with you. If you listened to last week's episode, I was talking about Sam, employee Sam, who had a meeting that didn't go so well, or a presentation that he was leading that didn't go so well. So an example there, you could start with, hey, Sam, thank you for being willing to lead that presentation, right? That's a sincere thank you. Or again, it could be as simple as, hey, thanks for taking the time to meet with me. All this is taking that first moment to acknowledge them and to care personally in a way that's really quick and really accessible. And then you get right into it with the observation. So we started with the gratitude, and now we go to the observation. This is you saying what you observed about the situation. This is saying, yesterday at the meeting, you struggled to find clear ways to communicate what you were saying. And it seemed like you didn't have very many notes to go off, and your slides had a lot of errors. So those were observations, right? You gave the situation, here's when it happened, and this is what you observed. And then you go into the impact. And it made you seem unprepared, and it was hard for us to understand what you were trying to communicate. So here's what you didn't say. You didn't say, hey, Sam, you were unprepared for yesterday's meeting. You didn't show up ready to do it, and you missed an opportunity. We have now charged Sam's character with a flaw, right? And we do this often. It's called the fundamental attribution error, where we see a behavior and we attribute it to a character flaw. So someone is late for work. We think they're lazy. We attribute the behavior we see to a character flaw. And we don't want to do that here. We don't want to accuse or charge employee Sam with anything attached to his character. All we want to do is call out, at this time and place, I observed this thing, and this was the impact. So the observation and the impact. And that's it. It's very clear. And so did you notice how we just got right to it? Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing that. Yesterday at the meeting, right? You jump right into it. And then after you give the observation and the impact, you give time for the response. And the response is their opportunity to be a part of the conversation. So instead of just administering this critique, you've just stated some facts, and now they get to participate. You don't even have to ask a question like, so what do you think of it? You don't even have to ask that. You just state the observation and the impact, and then you let them talk. You just stop talking and you see what they say. And this might be a time where they start maybe a little defensive, or they start a little upset with themselves, and you just give them the chance to work through it. And as they talk, you say, and what else? Tell me more. I observed that too, right? This is a conversation, but this part, the response part, is really their chance to talk. It's their chance to respond. And again, it would be really great if your people have the self-awareness to be able to take that time and really reflect on what happened and be able to work through that with you. Your relationship might not be there yet, but that's okay. You just want to start and have zero expectations, really. Like, do not go in hoping that they're like, you are so right. This is what I should have done differently. They may have an emotional response. And that is okay. You can have some grace and some patience to humbly help them see that you're just trying to help them. So after you have allowed that space, then you can end with the affirmations. And these affirmations are not fake praise. They are things which you want to say to remind your employee of their value, right? Remind them that they are seen and heard and that they are an important part of this team. And so these are these affirmations, and it could be really specific. Yes, those things happened, but this is also what happened. This is what went well. So this is the time to finish off with some praise, with some affirmation to remind them, this is what you are doing that I see that is so good, and keep those things going. And again, none of that should be forced. If you don't feel it, you shouldn't say it. And if you're struggling to find something, then you need to take the time to really think through what went well and then be ready to say those things. Okay, so a quick run through again of what that critique conversation looks like. It starts with gratitude, then goes to your observation, the impact, their response, and then you end with the affirmations. I really tried to make an acronym of that, but it wasn't happening. It's like Goira. It's not a word. So if you've got a good acronym for that, email me at Kara@heykaralist.com and help a leader friend out. So 3 quick reminders about how this delivery should happen. It should happen in person. That's really important. I love asynchronous communication, but this kind of critique has to happen in person. You just lose so much context and nuance when it's asynchronous, and that is harmful. The second is in private, right? Not with a group around, not in a staff meeting. And the third is immediately. You shouldn't hesitate. You should go right into this. Make it a habit of getting right into it. So I want to encourage you again that this should feel uncomfortable. There are very few leaders. I mean, maybe over time, you would get to a point where you could just do this so rhythmically that you have a culture of this on your team where it doesn't feel uncomfortable, but it's going to take a while to get there. And it's going to be clunky and messy, and you're not going to do it well. This is part of it. But you know what, friend? That's what makes you an authentic leader, someone who cares enough about your people to try it without it being perfect, to not make it about you. This is how organic relationships, where organic, healthy culture starts in these kinds of conversations. If you avoid it or you sugarcoat it, it just makes it so much worse. And that isn't a truthful way to approach communication or feedback with your people. You want a culture that is based on trust. And any kind of twisting or manipulating or sugarcoating, all that insincerity, it just erodes trust. It is working against you, friend. So be willing to just step into it, knowing I'm not going to do this perfectly, but it's okay because that mess is authentic and you will get better at it and your people will value you for it. And ultimately, remember, just be humble. You could be wrong. And remember also that you were just trying to help. You want this person to grow. You want your comfort to scoot out of the way in order for your people to grow because you care. And I am so glad that you are a leader who cares. Friend, your workplace will thrive. Okay, that's it for this week. Don't sugarcoat it, friends. Have a great one. Make sure you leave a review and a rating if this was helpful. I would love that critique. I would love that feedback. It would mean so much to me. And until next week, keep on keeping on. You're doing the hard work, and I'm cheering you on. Bye, friends.